Welcome to the second installment of Investing 101 with CONTRA the HEARD investment newsletter. I'm your host, Todd MacSween, and today we'll be discussing free macro resources with Philip MacKellar. This is the second in a three-part series on investor resources, where we've covered free stock resources and we will cover free news resources. So be sure to subscribe, stay tuned for more, and do check out the first video in the link below. Welcome, Phil.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for that introduction, and thanks again for setting this up.
Absolutely. Happy you could be here today. So again, this is the second in a three-part series, and maybe we could start out by talking about macro research. So why is it important, and how is it different from our first video on stock-specific research?
Right. Well, it's different from stock-specific research because instead of looking at company or industry-level data and company-level key performance indicators, you're looking at it at data on an economy level or on a country level. So in that way, it can be quite different. And then I think it's important for a few reasons. The first is that once you have grasped a country or a company you would like to make an investment, you probably want to find out where it operates, where it does its business, and how that economy is doing. You don't want to just go in there blind. And that applies for international ETFs if you're ever buying those as well. If you're going out and you're buying like the Turkey ETF, which we've talked about on this channel in the past, you probably want to know what's going on in that country and get up to speed with how things are faring. So that's why it's important in a nutshell. And I guess I would sum it up by saying that, well, I'm personally a bottom-up investor. No investment works in a vacuum. So it's very important to at least be cognizant of the macro factors going on throughout the economy.
Very good points. Yeah, okay. Thanks for explaining that. I appreciate that. I guess it must be difficult to know which resources to use, given that there are so many out there on the macro topic.
Yeah, there are. I know that we've talked about a number of resources, just the two of us in the past, and I've had conversations like that with many people. I think at the start of the last video, I said that I would only focus on free resources. So I'll do that again today. It will just be resources that anybody with the access to the internet can go and use. But given that some of these resources you can pay up and get better service if you so wish, they might change over time. And to your point about how many resources are out there, this is by no means an exhaustive list. You could easily find dozens of other websites that replicate what we're about to talk about today.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's get started. So your first macro resource you've noted is trading economics, and you've noted that that's actually probably your favorite, perhaps by far?
Yeah, I would say possibly by far. It's certainly my favorite resource, and their website is easy to use, and it does a lot. And because of that combination, I really like it. When you go and you or just not even log in, when you just go to their website and look at it, the center spread indicates for you front and center the latest news happening in the global economy. On the right-hand side of the website, you can look at the latest Forex rates, you can look at the latest stock market action, commodity price action, and then when you scroll down, you get to a nice section which details all the countries in the world, and it shows how every country out there is performing on key performance indicators like GDP growth, rate of inflation, unemployment rate, debt metrics, and it's all right there. So from there, you can then drill down into the data however you please. But the opening frame and the opening page that they have is very straightforward and intuitive.
Fantastic. That sounds lovely. Maybe you could run through some of the tabs along the home page there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I guess the first tab I'd indicate is the calendar tab. And the calendar tab will give a breakdown of and list all the economic news that is going to be published in a given day or a given week. So if you're wondering when the next inflation data will be out or for a country, or when the next unemployment report will be published, Trading Economics will have the answer for you. And then once the data actually comes out, all their information will be updated, and it's just really good. And it covers so much. I've mentioned inflation and unemployment a few times, but they cover things like bond auctions, they cover housing starts, oil production. So it's a very good resource for sure, and I really like that calendar feature. It's something I look at when I first wake up in the morning. I just kind of scroll through and see what's happened in Europe and Asia overnight, and it's great. I really like it.
Makes sense. It does seem like a useful tool. If I recall, you can also customize the data under the calendar category as well.
Yeah, there are two ways to customize it. I haven't played around with it in a while, but I think the two ways are on a country level, you can customize it. So if you just want to look at the US, you can do that. If you want to look at every country in the world, you can do that. I have it set for G20 nations, so the biggest economies in the world, and that's my preference. You can also customize it in terms of, do you want to see every single data point that's coming out, which is a huge list, or do you just want to focus on the most pertinent or high-level metrics, like the unemployment rate, for example? And I have it set for that. I don't want to see absolutely everything that comes out, but I do want to know how the high-level data is faring for sure. So those are the two ways you can customize it.
Excellent. Well, it certainly sounds like it's something for people to play around with and customize as they like and just get used to, I guess, over time.
Yeah, you can download the app if you're mobile friendly or if you're inclined that way, and that's what I have. But the website is great too, and you can log in or log on and play around with it. And if you're interested in markets and you're interested in investing and you're like me, it will probably benefit you quite a bit.
Fantastic. Well, I see in your notes you've also highlighted the indicators tab. Is that something you could tell us about?
Yeah, the indicators tab is probably the best part of this website. And when you log in, I'll try to get a print screen for you or something. You can go and look at a country and click on that country, and then you can see all the government budget information you want, labor information, trade statistics, business indicators, consumer trends. All that information is right there within one country. And then you can also rank countries. So if you want to know how countries are faring on GDP growth or GDP or even oil production, for example, you can do that as well. So because of that customization and because of the library of resources and data points they have, you can satisfy almost any question you can think of. If you want to know what housing starts were here in Canada, dating back to the 1990s, you can do that. If you want to know what India's inflation rate was versus Pakistan's inflation rate in the 80s or something like that, you can do that too. So the data is right there for you. It's just a case of going to the indicators tab, playing around a bit, and then finding what works for you.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great overview. Appreciate that. Day to day, I would imagine you use the market category, given that it shows global markets and various asset classes within. It seems pertinent.
Yeah, they are very pertinent, and it's very good data that they have. If you're a casual market observer or a trader, and anything in between, the data is probably useful for you. It's real time, which is nice. Many websites are these days, but not all of them. And they also show information not only how say a bond has fared or a commodity has fared over the last trading day, but it will show over the last week, over the last month, year to date, that sort of thing. So it's very easy just to see how things are trending using that tab, and I like it quite a bit. I don't use it anything like as much as the indicators tab, but it's right there for you. And if you do like staying up to date and up to speed on the moment by moment movements in capital markets, it's right there for you.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like a great resource, especially considering we're talking about free resources today. So do you have any closing comments on this one before we go on to the next?
I think that pretty much sums it up from this angle. I would say that they have a forecast tab, and I don't personally use it that much, but it's there. And if you're so interested, you can go look at forecasts and then see if they're right or not.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I see the next item you have listed here is the Federal Bank of St. Louis as your next resource. Do you care to comment on that?
Yeah, this is a very good resource as well. So online, it's called FRED, Economic Data, is another name for it. And they've been producing stats for years, maybe even longer, maybe decades, online anyway. And they are a part of the U.S. Federal Reserve banking system. And they will cover almost any American economic data point you can think about. And they also allow you to download the data into Excel and then play around with it further. And that's a big highlight for me anyway, because sometimes it's great looking at information for free on trading economics, but other times I really want to download the data and have it in an Excel format. And this website does that for me.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a nice feature, being able to download in Excel format. So perhaps gives them a slight edge over trading economics in that regard.
Yeah, in that regard, for sure. You can pay up on trading economics and get the same feature, but if you can get it for free, why not get it for free?
That's right. Good, good. So does Fred also publish international data, or is it solely focused on the US?
Yes, they do publish international data, and I should say, actually, their international data is very good. They're I wouldn't say borrowing, but amalgamating the data that other countries publish for their national economies. And again, you can find it all right there. And because of the downloadability, it's great. Sometimes I'll go and actually download Canada-specific key performance indicators on their website because they do it quite well. And I should also say you can get regional data for from Fred as well, and the regional data is very, very good. You can get academic data as well, although I don't actually claim to have done that very often. So I really like that. So you can get very granular within the United States, and you can do international. So it's great.
Perfect, perfect. So regional, does that mean state by state in Fred?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that's exactly what I mean. Yes, it's broken down on a state by state level. They also do things like they will break down data by census area and Federal Reserve District and that sort of thing. But yeah, the primary one is on a state by state basis. So you can see how California versus Texas versus New York is doing on unemployment, for example.
Right, right. Okay, well, good. It's good to know. So regarding Fred's release calendar, have you used that feature much, and what do you think of it?
Yes, I do. It's sort of like Trading Economics calendar, except that they are including information that universities publish as well, and many other institutions are publishing. And when you go on there, it's mind-boggling how much is being produced. I mean, 25, 30 press releases a day can be expected, and that's just a lot. So I do use it, but I also find it a bit overwhelming.
That sounds like it'd be very easy to get lost in the noise if that many releases.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually a good segue just to point out that there's always a lot of noise in markets and in investing in general. And for investors out there or even traders out there, it's always important to remember that no single data point actually holds that much meaning, especially without a historic context. And then the real kicker is, even if you understand the historical context, it might be actually very hard to translate that data and that historical context into an actionable idea and an investable idea. So, it's not easy or straightforward.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess that's why you're a bottom-up investor first and a macro watcher second. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean that's what has worked for me, but I know that there are plenty of good macro traders and macro investors out there who it works for them doing something else. But it's important to find out what actually works for you in investing and try to stick with that as best you can.
Fair enough. Okay, well, before we move on to the next one, I should say, maybe usability. Can you comment on that versus trading economics?
Yeah, I would say the usability is pretty good, but it isn't as good. Trading economics is just so easy and straightforward and intuitive, and they have them beat there a little bit. But Fred does make up for it with the downloading of data into Excel. So I guess it washes out a bit in that regard.
That's a nice feature. Okay, well, sticking with government and central bank databases, your next here, I see your third and fourth macro resources are Stats Canada and the Bank of Canada. Care to comment?
Yeah, so Stats Canada is really good. They provide investors and economists and academics even with hundreds of data points ranging from construction and energy consumption to demographics and GDP and consumer spending. So there's a lot in there. The website, you can customize the data to look at the latest quarter, or you can customize it to look at many years of data. And Stats Canada, they have a big punch. If you're ever watching BNN, or you're on the Globe and Mail, or the Financial Post, or CBC, or wherever you're getting your news, they're probably pulling their numbers directly from Stats Canada because that's who's publishing them and that's who's amalgamating all the information. So it's a very important, I would say, institution and a very important resource for the investing public.
Definitely, sounds like it. So do you find it helpful that they break it down by province and territory? Is that useful? Or?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting for sure. It can be useful, but it's certainly interesting, and I do like that. So kind of similar to Fred, that breaks down things on a state by state basis. Stats Canada does break it down on a province by province basis, and for some data points, I know that they also break it down much more granularly than that. So I was looking at the income information from the last census, and I could actually drill down and see the income for a neighborhood by neighborhood picture, which is very detailed information. So you can go to any city you want and see where the wealth is and where it isn't based on their data.
Fair enough. Well, it's a good resource. So what about the Bank of Canada compared to StatsCan? How do they differ? And yeah, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so they differ in that Stats Canada covers many, many economic indicators, whereas the Bank of Canada, they're focused purely on things like the exchange rates, bond yields, and interest rates. And that's pretty much it. So much, much more focused than Stats Canada, and much more interested in the monetary side of the investing and economic question.
So if you combine StatsCan and Bank of Canada, you'd pretty much get the Canadian equivalent of Fred, would you say?
Yeah, pretty much. I would say that's probably pretty darn right.
Good, good. All right. Well, any closing comments with regard to StatsCan and Bank of Canada?
Well, we've talked a lot about ease of use of websites so far today. Trading Economics is great ease of use. I would say that Stats Canada isn't quite as easy to use. It's a little more clunky. So, if you're going through the website and you're looking for information on Stats Canada, I wouldn't quite expect the same user experience as you're getting on Trading Economics, for example.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, well, moving along here to your next free resource, we have FX Top. Could you tell us why you included that one?
Yeah, so I wanted to include at least one resource that focused on foreign exchange rates, currency conversion, historical exchange rates, that sort of thing. And as I know you know, there are tons and tons of websites which do this. And at the end of the day, it was really hard to narrow it down to one, but I ultimately settled with FX Top for this video.
Good, good. And why would you say you settled on that versus its competitors?
Yeah, well, it wasn't easy. There were a few reasons. The first one is that their data goes back a long way to before Nixon taking the U.S. off the gold standard. And a lot of their peers don't do that. A lot of their peers, they might have exchange rates going back 10 years or 20 years, but not all the way to the 70s or not beyond the 70s. So that really differentiates them from some of their competitors. You can download the information into Excel, which I like by this point if you've watched the prior part of this video. And you can easily flip the exchange rate right there and flip it back and forth, which is great. And another really nice thing about their website is they don't confine themselves to the big important exchange rates of the world, like the US dollar or the euro or the pound. You can go and get almost any exchange rate you want from the tiniest, littlest, most insignificant country right the way up to the United States. So it's all right there, and that differentiates them as well.
That's certainly a couple nice features there. So if I recall correctly, they also provide historic FX relationships for currencies that are no longer even in existence anymore. Is that right?
Yeah, they do that, and it's kind of funny to see countries that have imploded that way. But it's also useful, I think, for some academics if they know of the resource for sure. And then there are countries that haven't imploded but have been folded together in the euro. So it will include the old, not Swiss, the French franc and the Deutschmark from Germany, and you can find those relationships there too.
Interesting, yeah. So some homework for folks. Anything else you like about FX Top that you want to point out?
They have a inflation calculator, which is useful. Sometimes I use that, and again, because they have all the currencies out there, it's not just confined to the inflation rates in the big economies of the world. You can find it for anywhere. And, their website looks dated. It looks crappy to some people or like garbage. And I kind of like that actually because there's no bells and whistles and they don't try to make it look good. they just try to make it functional, and that's exactly what it is. It is a very functional, straightforward website. It doesn't look great, but it has everything you want there. And I personally like that. So, but that's just me.
Well, it gets the job done. So, I mean, maybe you get into the business of redesigning good-looking websites into functional but antiquated-looking websites.
Yeah, that's a good idea, especially if they get more functional in the process.
That's right. Good. Okay. Well, it's the end of the list you sent me, Phil. Any closing comments that you'd like to make before wrapping this up?
I would kind of going back to the top. We mentioned that the list today was only free resources, so that's very important to point out. But that the list today also isn't an exhaustive list. There's so much out there. I thought of including Wikipedia, for example, and I thought of including Our World and Data and other currency conversion websites, but I had to draw the line somewhere. And then I thought of including tons of industry-specific websites or even investor-specific websites, which look at things like insider trading, investor sentiment, short interest, which, we talk about quite a bit, the two of us. But again, I had to draw the line somewhere. So, yeah, that is what it is, and that's where I left the video.
I suppose if we went down that path, industry-specific resources, we could, we'd probably just never leave this topic, I think.
Yeah, we could make tons of videos, but yeah, I don't know if anyone would watch them, that's for sure.
Good. Well, thanks for coming today, Phil. Appreciate you taking the time to film this one, and look forward to filming part 3 of the Investor 101 series, where we'll be talking about free news resources.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I look forward to that too, and I can't wait.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining everyone today, and be sure to watch part 1. Stay tuned for part 3, and be sure to subscribe as well. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like free access to our paid subscriber content, just click the link here and enter your email address here. And don't worry, we won't spam you, but if Contra does ever offer a major discount to the newsletter, we'll let you know. Otherwise, you'll just be receiving our premium video content through this channel. So we look forward to seeing you there. Happy investing.